Today's AskReddit post. People who were on show like Super Nanny, World's Strictest Parents, or Scared Straight. What was the experience like? And what was the aftermath? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. I went to high school with a kid who was on Super Nanny when he was like 11. Apparently him and his sister's behavior weren't all that bad, and that one day a camera crew just showed up at his house. He also told me they were trying to force an emotional scene where he would hug his mom and say he loves her forever or something, and he was like, no, that's gay, and they were like, please, and he was like, no. They settled on love you mom, I love you son. Mayo, okay gay lord. Mayo. One of my friends in grad school was on Nanny 911 as a kid, maybe around 5 years old. There were a lot of kids in her family, and one of the biggest problems the nanny had with their household was safety. She baby-proofed the entire house and lectured them on safety precautions they have to take in their lives to ensure that the children wouldn't get hurt. She even gave them all helmets to wear whenever they rode bikes or four-wheelers. After she left, a lot of the safety precautions went out of the window, and later my friend told me that they still had the helmets but they were all sitting in a dusty corner. I remember that episode. I don't understand parents who don't make their kids wear helmets, probably secretly hoping their kids will die. It's been an hour, I guess those people were not real. Give them time, Desi. Maybe their parents haven't gone to bed yet. We'll get here, we are just busy relapsing and walking on sunshine. Like 3 years ago, I lived in a big 5-bedroom house with 4 other friends in college. The house was in an episode of Super Nanny. We found out because our nice neighbor literally gave us a signed headshot from Joe Frost as a gift out of the blue. He literally told us, I think you all would like this more than me and get a kick out of it. It made our week and we found the episode online and watched it. I asked about the family to the neighbor as our house was rented out and owned by a property company. He told me after the show the parents fought all the time, lost all of their money due to 2008 crisis, and lost the house to foreclosure. The picture stayed on our mantle for 3 years and I thought about that family every time. It was all nice and wholesome and then it crashed and burned at the end. Kind of like the stock market does. I lived in India. Once in my school when I was in 6th grade, these foreign kids pop up with a bunch of cameramen and stuff. Speculation went wild. We thought our terrible principal probably wanted to create a cool image for the school and was creating some kind of weird advertisement. Anyway, years later I saw the YouTube clip by complete chance of World's Strictest Parents. It was my school and those exact kids. They had come to an Indian family whose children went to my school. The episode was a lot of drama. The parents were kind of obnoxious, at least for the episode. However, the last I heard on asking a few friends was that those parents were fine and their children are doing reasonably well. Not sure about the foreign kids who came. What a small world. Seems like ages ago. Is the British episode with a girl with red hair? The boy and the girl smoke a lot. If so, that's one of my favorite episodes. I want the chicken nugget boy to answer so bad. King Curtis, I've been nice to you, but now I'm coming to the edge. I didn't go on, but some classmates went on Super Nanny or Nanny 911, can't remember which. They lived rather close to my friend, so I went over to his place to watch the filming and such. The nanny stayed in their neighbor's house across the street, and the kids' behavior didn't improve for a very long after the nanny left. From what I remember, they were trouble all through school. I lost contact with all of them during middle school. Edit. Just remembered. The parents ended up divorcing not too long after the show. I wouldn't imagine a nanny swooping in and putting a band-aid on the problem would fix anything like you said. If children are misbehaving, it's on the parents to tweak their parenting style to fix the problem. I had a friend on World's Strictest Parents. She was approached by a producer late one night at a McDonald's because she was 15, drunk, and wearing a stolen police hat. Apparently the producers hang around looking for kids there a lot. Anyway, she did her parents swap, was moderately wild, came back and decided she wanted to be a chef. I don't think she finished at culinary school. She had a baby at 19 and is a great mom to 2 kids now. How is the producer doing now? Great father of two? I was on Scared Straight and my episode never even aired because they only select a very small amount of footage to make it look a lot worse than it actually is. Most prisons were pretty nice. In 8th grade our class took a field trip to the county's jail and courthouse. A few of the people locked up just flipped us off through the one-way glass and I think one mooned us. Apparently it never happened because the teacher was shocked, but we thought it was the epitome of comedy. It's not prison, just a jail, but most people there seemed pretty chill for the most part. We took a tour of our county jail after we did grand jury and our prosecutor was a pretty attractive lady. It was hilarious when she would walk through the doors because they were all banging on the glass and whistling trying to get her attention. They loved Mandy. My brother went to school with a kid from the Scared Straight show. The comb my chest hair kid, if you have seen the show. He said that the kid used to get messed with after the show aired, but now lives a pretty normal life and stays out of trouble as far as he can tell. So I would say that the show works, I guess. LOL. That episode was so funny. Yeah, he did not know what to do. Think him getting a GF and later married kept him out of trouble. I was on Super Nanny. My siblings and I were out of control kids and my parents frankly didn't know what to do. I liked being in front of the camera for the most part. It's like a mini time capsule. I sometimes watch every once in a while and witness how cringe I was. Nanny Jojo set up this reward chart for when we were good. Heck, once they even filmed me in timeout, haha. So far this is the first potential real first-hand account in this thread from what I've seen. If you can say, what kind of NDA did you have to sign? That may give us an insight into why there are so few personal stories about this topic. Can a kid even sign an NDA? I guess the parent would sign for them or something. My friend's family was on Nanny 911. They said most of it was staged and the nanny didn't actually have any affect on the family. Why should she show affect if she just met them? A lot of people seem to not get the joke in this statement. Didn't go on the show, but went theater my county's Scared Straight program as a young teen. The experience was kind of traumatic. I was the youngest person in the group, and, well, I never got in trouble like that again aside from a speeding ticket at 18. The freedom to make my own choices is of great value to me, hence the rebellious years, and prison is the exact opposite of what I want out of life. I'm 21 and doing quite well for myself and future self. Anyone that isn't affected by that program is a liar, or a lost cause. Friend of mine worked on Nanny 911 in NYC. Nothing on that show happened unless the producers okayed it. They would come up with scenarios and plot points to film. You don't just shoot TV shows like that and hope that something magical happens. They created every issue. Reality TV is not real. Edit. The camera crew who worked on Nanny 911 also worked on other shows like Real Housewives of New York, Kitchen Nightmares, and Hell's Kitchen. Film business is a very small world. A coworker was featured on Super Nanny. They had a pretty good experience filming and were so excited for their show to air that they hosted a watch party. I'm sure you can imagine what's next. The way the show was edited made the parents look so bad, like neglectful bad, and made the kids, who were pretty wild, look even worse. It ended up being a pretty awkward watch party. I'd like to contribute. Hopefully someone sees this. My brother was on a show called Violent Children. Desperate parents, and honestly they were brilliant. I wasn't part of this whole experience because I was in university at the time. But my father and my brother both were in this show and the show staff were honestly brilliant. Here in the UK, especially Wales where my family lives, mental health is not really a thing the poor have access to, and my family are definitely working class. This show gave my brother and my father access to mental health care they would have never have been able to access themselves, and made quite a large difference in both their lives. They continued to support my family for almost a year after filming with offers of more mental health help. And both my father and my brother are happier people today because of this. One thing I will say is the only reason we were featured on this show was out of pure desperation. There was basically no other way that my father could imagine getting help. Given he'd spent almost 8 years fighting with the NHS to get my brother psychological help, all to basically no avail, my family were made into entertainment for the masses so that we could access something fairly basic. Something about the whole experience doesn't sit right with me at all. Happy to answer any further questions. One of the couples on the Super Nanny show got recognized and reported to the cops by their neighbors. I can't remember the name of the family, just that they had a few kids and that the older one had sometimes missed school to watch the younger ones. If it's the one I think it is, then that was a rough one, and good on the neighbors. I remember seeing that episode and being horrified because the oldest sibling was definitely being abused, and instead of calling CPS and getting actual help, the nanny just talked to the parents and tried to convince them to lighten up on the oldest and take some responsibility. Like the kid was literally shaking and looked like they might pass out the whole episode. Should have placed a serious tag. Now we'll never know, comma, does a serious tag really stop people from making up bull poop? I know the super healthy family that was on the episode of Wife Swap with the chicken nugget kid. His dad ran a fitness gym and did boot camp with my parents. After that Wife Swap episode, their family did not change at all. My mom said that we had them at our house for dinner one time and the son ate all of the food he could get because his parents never let him have the kind of food we served at their house. They're doing really well now. The son is going to a really good college and the daughter is a Star Trek athlete. Edit. I don't know much about the chicken nugget kid himself, but last I heard, he's exactly the same as well. The daughter of the super healthy family says he started a GoFundMe so he could buy a guitar. The super healthy family went on Dr. Phil as well and revealed a lot of personal information. From what I've heard, they applied for any reality TV show they could possibly qualify for. Glad their insanity didn't keep the kids from thriving. When I was about 6, my sister and I were on a show similar to Super Nanny. They straight up told us what to do so they could get all the footage, and literally none of the solutions the nanny came with lasted more than a few days. 100% staged and acted. Patiently waiting for Curtis from that one episode of Wife Swap to say something. What happened? And he was the king and we were all sorry people. What about extreme makeover, home editing? Were those people's actual houses and did they ever keep the house? I had a friend who was on the first season of Nanny 911. According to her, there really wasn't anything wrong with the kids behavior wise. But there were 7 young girls in the family and 3 were triplets. The craziness was dramatized for the most part, and the real reason why her parents decided to be on the show was for the paycheck so they could build an addition on the smallish house they had. Their father passed away very recently due to lung cancer from 911. He was NYPD and worked overnight, so they ran that house very strict. All the kids turned out great and they're all beautiful and unique young women now. Bikes. I would also like to know how the houses from the Move That Bus show are doing. Granted, they were only made in a week. A lot of them end up losing their house because of the increased tax rate from the improvements. They actually had to start making the houses smaller and more realistic because so many of them were losing the houses. For modern times, that's been an ongoing issue with fixer-upper homes. 2. They're taking houses in $200 to $300K neighborhoods and jacking up the value. Sure, the houses look fantastic, but when someone's shopping in a neighborhood where they're hoping to spend maybe $250K on a house, they're not going to want to shell out the $475K plus to live in one of Chip and Joe's projects. Just came here to say that anytime I got into an argument with my parents between ages 10-12, I would sit in my room and stress about if they would send me to brat camp or whatever. Scariest poop, man. I ducking loved world's strictest parents and I almost forgot it existed. My auntie was once on Jeremy Kyle, which is basically a British version of Dr. Phil but with families of crackheads and stuff who take lie detector tests. Sometimes it can be really serious and other times it can be stupid, like tests to see who stole the lawnmower to buy black tar heroin. Her ex-boyfriend wanted a DNA test to see if the child was his. Surprise surprise it was, and months later he left her anyway. Now my auntie has 6 kids to 5 different men and she constantly lectures me about getting a job when she's 32 and never worked a day in her life. I'm guessing she doesn't want you to end up like she did. Try a serious tag next time maybe, and a less specific title. Was never on the show but did a scared straight program when I was a young teen. It did exactly jackpot to deter me from anything. I went with a neighborhood friend since we both violated our UV probation on different occasions. While being tarady around the prison we actually had to be removed from the group because we had a personal connection with one of the inmates. He was my friend's first cousin. I swear I've seen a scared straight episode with a kid who met up with his dad and uncle on Netflix. My uncle's family was featured on Extreme Home Makeover. Due to a rare condition my cousin has, they got a brand new house, car, and mostly paid vacation. My grandparents drove out to the big revealing. They stood in the crowd of actors shouting "Move that bus" for 3-4 hours during countless reshoots. While waiting on the host to show up, they ended up trading the car, due to it being impossible to insure for at least 6 months because of the new model. They installed an entire fish tank as a wall in my cousin's room, which ended up leaking and causing water damage into almost the entire house, including basement. The crazy home temperature control cost a fortune, which compounded with everything else they had dealt with in a 6-month span caused them to just sell the house in the end. I guess people here don't know that the save button exists. I save poop all the time, but forget about it. I had a friend on Reddit who would answer questions on our AskReddit about very specific things that not many people have experienced. But he would make poop up and start it with "I had a friend." Exactly. Literally every comment "I had a friend" or "I heard a story" on Mayo. Okay, none of those shows and not me either. But my mum's godson. His mum and my mum were best mates and my mum was the one who went with his mum on the show. LOL. Went on son intercourse and suspicious parents. Nothing really changed immediately that I know of, although on the show he said he was gonna change his party lifestyle from then on, but obs that was for the cameras. That was like 8 odd years ago now and he's married with a kid since last year, so he slowed down slowly but surely. Not really relevant but along in the same theme of parents and kids being told to overact and stuff. When I was 13 me and my parents were interviewed for a BBC show called Living with the Enemy for an episode where the parents were to spend time with the band Cradle of Filth because their child was a fan and they supposedly disapproved. My parents weren't being outraged enough and it was suggested they should be more upset about their precious small child liking such a band because it would make better television. My parents just didn't have it in them because they really weren't that bothered because I was a good kid. The family who ended up on the program were massively overdramatic and the kid was 18, so probably not the same impact as it would have been with me, an oh so impressionable little girl. Had my family cooperated, I also still have the interview tape over 20 years later as they sent it to us, along with a bunch of signed band merch for me. I went to elementary school with a kid that was on Super Nanny. They found him jumping in those big red balls at Target and was like, "Yo, you wanna be on our show?" Basically they had him act out on purpose for a nice 10k, or somewhere around there, check. Dude, I've always wanted to know this. Like, does this actually work? Or did the parenting instantly go back to poop once they left? Same with the strict parent show. I have a feeling that it didn't change them at all considering they're teens. I worked on a production for an unaired pilot of a show similar to Wife Swap. None of it was scripted, because casting did extensive interviews and found people that acted natural and excited on camera. I picked up the talent from the airport, took them to their hotel, and helped with anything they needed on set. From my experience, everyone was super nice to one another. The crew was super grateful to the homeowner's talent, because we were in their living space for 12 hours each of the 3 days of filming. I think they all had fun being around the set environment, and since it was a small crew and everyone had a good time, the wrap party was chill and fun. Drinks back at the hotel after filming had wrapped. OHH, I'm excited to read responses. For some reason I don't think there was any long-term improvement. Kind of like how most contestants on The Biggest Loser gained the weight back. They lost weight in unhealthy ways. Of course they would gain it back. They damaged them for life. That show was deplorable. Wasn't on any of those shows, but my dad is a porn star. Or I guess was because he is retired now. Really ducks you up as a kid when all your friends keep spamming you pictures of your dad's foot-long dick. I went to college with someone whose family was on extreme makeover. It financially ruined them and I think they ended up homeless for a short while because of it. He told me his parents say how much they regret being on the show every day. I didn't press for more info than that. That show was entirely trauma porn and sounds like it did more damage than not. I lived in the same town and went to school with quite a few kids in the Call Family episode of World's Strictest Parents. At one point, the poop-head teenage boy sent there is shown climbing a cliff at the show really amped up as dangerous. He's seen standing at the top of it looking over the edge. Worry and danger is the general feeling you're meant to get from the scene. And it really looks desolate and wild out there. Like this kid straight took a hike. Literally right below him is the bowling alley. That cliff is maybe 100 feet high. It's also directly across the street from the Call family house. He walked across the street and walked up a hill. Had he fallen down that hill, he might have gotten a bruise or two. Since the bowling alley is where an old gravel pit used to be, so the cobblestone is plentiful, but I doubt much else. So, yeah, probably played up a bit. I was too early, leaving a comment for later when the show starts. My husband was on Super Nanny. He was about 12 or 13 and his siblings were much younger. He was definitely made out to be the poor older sibling who got stuck with babysitting them. His sister probably had the worst behavior on the show, but 14 years later, she's amazing and in the army. His brother continues to have behavioral issues to this day. My husband said the tools and techniques JoJo used definitely didn't last long once she left. He did say the producers set up a fun night with just him and his parents and he still thinks fondly of that. Edit. Words. My cousin was on Scared Straight and he got so scared he went off grid and separated himself from society when he came of age, for fear that social peer pressure would inevitably lead to his incarceration or death. No internet, no phones, no contact with anyone other than his dad and a few other family members. My co-worker and her family were recently on Super Nanny. She said it was a total life changer. She said her boys absolutely love Joe and that her boys have done a complete turnaround. Also said that her and her husband have dramatically changed their parenting style as a result. She tears up just talking about it. I knew a couple guys in high school that were on World's Strictest Parents. They were not problem children at all. It was all fake and for television. Grew up in Indy. Was the assistant coach to my mom who coached my youngest brother's team. I think they were all about 4/5 I must have been 16. Long story short, there were these twins, little hellions. I had 4 siblings, well versed in the duckery. If one of those 2 was my little brother, definitely would have tripped them a time or 10. Damn, those kids were poops. I didn't find out they were on that nanny show until years later. Was just having a chat with mom and she starts laughing and filled me in. Good times. Terrible kids. Turns out, poopty adults as well. Fucking surprise. Remember, as Mr. Bob Barker always said, spay and neuter your children. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.